Check. Obviously, if I'm going to walk, I'm going to have to leave the office earlier. Bailey, Isaiah, Maddie, Mohammed, Raceland, Thuso. All right. And I didn't put it in the right spot anyway. All right. I can almost guarantee that we won't get finished with chapters 2 and 3 today. But next week, I think, is just lesson 4 or chapter 4. So what I'll probably do is what I don't get done with 3, I'll talk about on Tuesday of next week. There's some stuff that, I mean, you can read, and there's some stuff that I wouldn't even have put in the book. But there's also some stuff that I think needs to be talked about a little bit. Plus, you know, some of my old stories are interesting. All right. And so I have started recording yesterday in the other class and Tuesday in this class. My OBS kicked off before I completely finished. In this class, it was because the computer didn't have enough disk space. So I am also streaming to YouTube, not live, but at least hopefully I'll get a recording that way. I have checked attendance. I will be paranoid and go check and make sure everything is actually recording. Warning, the stream is something. I am not a YouTube streamer, so I don't know. Okay, as long as I'll have to play with that. Tuesday, Thursdays, we'll meet here. Monday, Wednesdays, we will not meet here, per the schedule. I would suggest on Mondays, take an hour and 15 minutes, the length of this class, and spend looking at the material for the week. You know, you can go ahead and start on some of the labs if you want to. The CompTIA material has lots of little videos in it, and they're reasonable. They're shorter than my lectures. They're 2 or 3 minutes. And that's how they explain a lot of things. So if you go into the CompTIA environment, I can't get to my laptop from here, so it's going to be a pain. But you go into the CompTIA environment and go into chapter 1 or 2 or 3, wherever you are. And if you just hit the little right arrow up at the top, it'll work you through. And like I say, some of the stuff is more interesting than not. Some of it they'll do a little video and then they'll go in and give you details about it. But anyway, I would suggest spending some time at the beginning of the week before I lecture looking at the material, and then that gives you Wednesday to work on labs and such. And so, I think at least that 2.5 hours belongs to this class. Hopefully we'll get through all of chapter 2 today. Chapter 2 talks about really the point of this class. And I'm using half of the Security Pro, the slides that come with the text, and but I've tried to condense a whole lot as well. So by the end of the next 30 minutes, 45 minutes, you should know what threats and vulnerabilities and mitigations are. And so we're going to talk about attacks first. And I left these in there, although I'm not going to read them to you. At the beginning of each chapter, it starts off with some definitions. And it covers that whole section. So this is all under understanding attacks. So obviously, threat actor is the person doing it. And then it talks about some of the different kinds of things that might happen. We throw the word hacker around a lot. You don't have to be evil and be a hacker. Some people hack for some cause, political, religious. I always say look at the motive, look at the real motive behind it. Nation states. The U.S. government is not excluded from this, but nation states spend probably millions of dollars a year trying to figure out how to get into stuff that they want. You may remember, it's been 2 or 3 years back, there was an iPhone that was associated with a potential terrorist, and they asked Apple to provide them a decryption key for that iPhone. And what they actually wanted Apple to do, they wanted Apple to write a program that would overwrite the thing on the phone. And I think it was if you punched the wrong security code in 10 times, then it would wipe the phone. The government, whoever that was, wanted Apple to write a specific update that would only be applied to that phone, of course, that would disable that. Because it was a 4 or 6 digit PIN, and we saw the other day that's not that many combinations, but the chances of getting it right out of 10, pretty slim. But if you could punch in every possible 4 or 6 digit code, then you could get in. Apple denied, and they threatened a lawsuit, and then a few weeks later, the government said, okay, we just don't need that anymore. And the speculation is they went to Israel, to a nation state, who had a technology that could do that and could get into that phone. So everybody does it. You're going to hear me say more than once, people are the problem. Someone who's inside the company, who has some kind of valid access. You see, often, like on this machine here, when I log into this machine or you log into a machine at the library, you obviously have some level of access. But you can't go in and delete other people's files off the computer. Probably can't install software on the computer. But if you can get on the computer, then it's not encased in concrete and at the bottom of the ocean, like I said you had to do if you really wanted it secure the other day. If you can get on the computer, and maybe there's some bug in PowerPoint that when you run PowerPoint and type a certain number in the calculator and press Control-Alt-Q 14 times, something weird happens with the machine and you might become administrator on that machine. Okay, dumb example. But that's the kind of thing, and I'll try to pull some examples in of where you take one little thing that's a potential problem, but you chain that with other things, and that's where hacking comes from. Shadow IT is hardware and stuff that's on a private network without authorization from the owner, meaning you're running a server in your dorm room or something, or some certain professor who happens to have like 5 machines running in his office right now. I'm probably the king of Shadow IT on campus. I've had most of those people in class, and I get some strange looks every now and then when I make some request for something, but I get along with them. They get along with me. But someone wants to run some kind of little web server or something, and you just bring in a machine. You can do it on a Raspberry Pi, a little tiny computer, and you plug it in, and it's, hey, this would be neat if our customers could see this. And now you've given someone a way in, and the owner of the system they don't know about it. They find out about it after the hack. We know what lures are, and supply chain is just from beginning to end. If you want to interrupt manufacturing over here at Firestone, there's a bunch of ways you could do it. The not so easy to get away with obvious would be to damage the building somehow. But if they're dependent upon raw materials, I think they make car springs or truck springs or something. If they're dependent upon raw material, if you can interrupt that raw material anywhere, the trucks that are bringing it in, you hack into the system for that company, and instead of sending them to Williamsburg, Kentucky, you send them to Williamsburg, Virginia. And if you can do that, that's a supply chain attack. It started off with threat actors, the people that do it and why. And these were individual slides in the CompTIA stuff, and I took 8 or 9 slides and combined it into 2. Money, greed, one reason. Some brilliant soul who accidentally does something. So I say brilliant doesn't mean good in context with me. Insiders looking around, spying on people. Maybe bribing someone, or they may be bribed, or they may blackmail somebody to get information that they then sell outside. Shadow IT, we talked about a little bit. Hackers. You've got unskilled hackers who just go and download, they're browsing the internet and they find this tool that says, hack into your company's mail server. Just install this. Now, they might be this person, because that hack that they download may be something that lets somebody else in. But there are programs out there, and we'll talk about this at some point. I've got a whole list of topics that I need to slide in when I can. There is a vulnerability database on the internet that basically identifies not every application, but most applications, and tells exactly what the vulnerability is, the problem is. And they're rated from 0 to 10. 10 means fix it yesterday. You know, and a 5 means, well, this could be just a major annoyance. But if you could take 2 or 3, 5 or 6 levels, you might get into the system. Well, if you find Apache as a common web server, if you find that Apache version 3.72 has a vulnerability, you go there, you look it up, and it says there's a vulnerability. Now, the current version of Apache is 3.8. We all update immediately, don't we? No, probably not. If it's working, don't update it. It's kind of the analogy to if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So then you start scanning the internet, but this tool does it for you. You start scanning the internet. Hey, find me some Apache 3.72 web servers, and you find one and you can break in. And it's some poor guy's blog who doesn't do anything but post cat pictures. You know, wow. Now, if you're a hacker who likes cats, maybe that's a good thing. But it could also be some senator's website, and there'd be important documents on there. We've talked about nation state already. Organized crime. A lot of hacking occurs for financial crimes in terms of stealing credit card numbers and stuff. And maybe your competitor down the road wants to know how you make your widgets and why your widgets are better than their widgets. And so they try to hack into your system to get your plans. What's the secret? You know, for years the phrase was the 11 herbs and spices at KFC. You know, it's a guarded thing. The formula of Coca-Cola is supposed to be some huge secret. But if competitors can get that, then A, they can take advantage of it. Talk a little bit about competitive advantage. Let's say you, kind of morbid, but it's a true story. I went to school here with a guy who's paid his way through college digging graves for local cemeteries. That was his job. He dug them by hand. And you know, he'd be out of class or he'd come running in class real late or something, and I went to school with him. Nice guy, because he had to go do it then, you know. I mean, it's not the kind of thing you can plan ahead for. So let's say you've got your college student gravedigger who's doing it all by hand, and someone comes along with a little excavator that can do it, you know. Well, the guy with the excavator, I can't say that word, has a competitive advantage because they can do it faster. Now they have to pay for the excavator, so it might not be any cheaper, but they can do it faster, and that's an advantage. Competitive advantages don't last, though, because my gravedigger guy friend sees that excavator and figures out, hey, I could buy one of those too. So once your secret is out, not that an excavator would be a secret, but once your secret's out, your competitors can do the same thing, and there goes your advantage. So you want to keep those secrets away from people as much as you can. Step 0, understand the problem. What kind of computers do they use? What's their network run on? How are user accounts created? How are passwords created? You know, Cumberland's usernames and passwords, if someone knows your name, they probably know your username. All they have to do is get your ID number, and there's your Cumberland username. Hopefully your password's not that easy to figure out. So you do reconnaissance. What can we see and what can we find out just by looking? Social engineering takes it a step further. Social engineering might involve going through somebody's garbage, looking for things that shouldn't have been thrown away. Or it might be intimidation, threatening somebody somehow. And it's often not done, I'm going to beat your face in if you don't give me this. The intimidation is often done from a perspective of power. I'm important, you're not, why aren't you helping me? It could be, I'm the customer, you need to do this for me. Or it could be sympathy. Yeah, my mom died last week and we're trying to get her banking done and we can't get into her phone. And you find the right person on the other end and they feel sorry, and you should feel sorry if it was true, but it may get them where they shouldn't be. But all three of these are just gathering information. A port scan and a ping sweep, just looking to see what's out there. We'll do a port scan. I think it's in some of your labs, but we'll do a port scan and we'll see if I get a text message or Teams message from IT when I try to do it on this computer. They've been known to do that. So what we need to do is we need to come up with some strategies to prevent those. I should have skipped this slide. Multi-factor authentication. We all love to hate it. Good old Microsoft Authenticator. I think I've used mine to get in my Google account here. I think I've done it 3 times since I came in this classroom already. Authenticated. That second factor though. So if someone gets your username and password, you get my username and password and decide to go home later today and check my email, I get a little notification that says, enter this number. Or click this number, whichever way. I think it may be different for you all. I say, why in the world am I getting this? If I'm brilliant, I do it. If I'm not, then I don't, and you can't get in, even if you have my password. Eventually, I don't think we'll have passwords anymore. And biometrics, fingerprint on phones and stuff like that. Not that any of you all would ever plan on doing anything illegal. Here's an interesting court ruling. Let's say that I'm arrested for something and they want to search my phone. They can't compel me to punch in my PIN because that's regarded as speech and expression. But they can force me to put my fingerprint on the button and unlock it. So if you ever plan on getting arrested and you think somebody might want in your phone, either disable, touch, or reboot your phone right before you're going to get arrested so that you have to punch that PIN in the first time. Now, is that law crazy? Yes, but laws, here's technology is a half a mile down the road and the law is 3 miles that way. It's not caught up. If you're trying to build a castle that nobody will attack, castles had walls, had moats. Which one are you going to attack? I think we talked about just the single door lock the other day, or 3 deadbolts. You don't want to try to knock down the door with 3 deadbolts. So what you want to do is attack the castle that doesn't have the moat. So if you're trying to rob a bank, you look for the bank with the least security. This just makes sense. Your text is going to talk a lot about the principle of least privilege. don't give someone more access than they need. I have one key on my key ring that I use regularly. I have about 30 keys on there probably. This is the only one I open, and this opens my office door. I can't open Brian Logan's office door with this key. I can't even open the front door of the office with this key. I definitely can't open a door upstairs with that key because I don't need to have access. So do the same thing on the computer. All of our vehicles have different keys, and we just don't give everybody keys to our car. So Fred can see Home Fred, and Mary and Bob can see their home folders, but Mary works sometimes with widgets, so she's got access to widgets, and Mary and Bob work together on a project, so they've got access to shared, but they need it for some specific thing. When Mary is no longer working in the widget department, you take away Mary's access. And that's hard, and it doesn't work here because these two keys go to my old office and nobody ever asked me for them. And you technically should. The key, I sign a form to get them, and they should periodically review. So, well, Ken's no longer in this building. He didn't turn his keys back in. Security can be enhanced with randomness. If your CIO goes to the same coffee shop every morning, the same time, every morning, I mean, it's common. I go to McDonald's a few days a week to get a coffee in the mornings, and there's a guy that I see in there all the time. And he's in there about as much as I am, probably more than I am. What's to say somebody doesn't start showing up at that coffee shop when your CIO does, Chief Information Officer, and starts spying on him, looking for things? What kind of badges do you use? If he pulls out his wallet and they see the badge, or if it's hanging around his neck. Maybe if you're more important enough, you shouldn't go to the same coffee shop every day. People hate changing passwords, but it needs to be done. And then we just need to obscure information. We don't need our name and title in 40-point font on our name tags, especially the tags now where we swipe. Maybe we don't even need printing on them at all. Got some friends in Florida that I go see, and he said, last time I was down there this past summer, he said, take a look at this. And he hands me a credit card. And I look at the credit card. He said, you see anything unusual? I look at the credit card. I look at the front and the back of the credit card. There's no name, no number, no expiration date, anything at all on it, except the name of the bank. It's a real pretty looking card on the front, but there's no information on it. You have to be able to tap it or use the chip. So someone steals it, they could tap or use the chip or something, but they can't just see it laying there or copy the number down off of it. I'm sure I would get bitten in a hurry when I had that, because I'd have to have some place that somebody tried that needed to type it in or something. And I said, well, what do you do if you need the number? And he said, well, you go to the app. And I should have known that answer. So the idea is we want to structure our networks so that it's hard for the hackers to get the information. Cumberland, you walk in here, and that's an Aruba access point. We go to the all-knowing internet. Aruba access point vulnerabilities. Maybe there are some. You know, I'm sure, I would break my neck if I climbed up on the desk up there to try to find the specific model. But with a ladder or something, you could do it, yeah. Yes. And some of them, I mean, the white hackers, the good hackers, they will try to break in and they'll send the information to Aruba so they can fix it. But the black hat or the evil, what they'll do is they'll try to sell it to somebody. And then there are some that just, hey, guess what I was able to do? And they just post it. So yeah. This is supposed to be an animated GIF. Yeah, it's working. All the different ways, and I realize it's going too fast for you to read, but that's okay. Some of the pictures are in the slides. These are all different ways that you can get into the system. We've all got phishing emails, USB keys. You find a USB key on the ground. I don't know why phishing was in there twice. Social media. Social media account on a work phone. The ever-present, you've won $10,000 email. So there's just all kinds of surfaces, all kinds of ways that evil hackers can steal information or get you to give them some kind of information. That slide that was just up there that had Google and LinkedIn and stuff. If you want to know something about a company, go to LinkedIn and look up people who work at that company. Send them an email or a LinkedIn message, whatever it's called. Hey, I see that you work for Acme Corporation. I'm thinking about applying there. I've got background in Aruba networking. Do y'all use Aruba networking? The person at the company should be trained. It probably wouldn't be that obvious. He'd probably start off a little more friendly, but eventually they leak information. So there's all kinds of ways to get in and to just get information. And if you get information, then you may have a way into the company. Social engineering is probably one of my favorite topics. It's insecurity. The idea is that we're going to do something and trick somebody into giving us what we need. And there's all sorts of, you can read the definitions and stuff. Hopefully you'll look through that material. Heard one guy say once on a podcast I listened to, he said, if you go to a construction site with a shirt and tie on, I assume pants too, but a shirt and tie on, with a clipboard and a hard hat, you can go anywhere you want to go. He said the workers will open the doors for you because they think you're important. And that's social engineering. Pretexting is kind of interesting. You come up with some kind of, hey, this is Ken from IT. It looks like there's been unauthorized access on your Microsoft Authenticator. I'm going to send you a code. Will you tell me what the code is you get back? Now, again, too obvious. But the idea is you tell them something to make them think you're trying to help them. And fishing and vishing and smishing and farming, just all different ways of doing things. Typo squatting. This one's kind of interesting. Depending on the font, you see Microsoft, right? But if you use the right font, nope, it's an N. Can't spell. But you use two letters that in certain fonts look like, oh, it's RN. And if you don't notice there's a little gap there, it looks like Microsoft. But instead, instead of going to Microsoft.com, you go to rmicrosoft.com, which I'm betting that Microsoft probably owns. And that gets you to go somewhere. And it's not hard to fake a web page login. So that's typo squatting. If you try to go to Gmail but misspell mail, I think that's the one that'll do it. UCumberland's website, UCumberland's blocks it because it's a known evil site. And I'm sure that Google has tried to pay lots of money for it. They may not even be able to figure out who owns it. Watering hole attack. That was where I was saying if the CIO always goes to the coffee shop. In this case, it's talking about websites. But if you're at the coffee shop and you're talking to the CIO and you hand them a business card, hey, check this out. And they do. I need to check the sound here. See if this will play. I think it's that one. Kevin Mitnick, if you're interested in social engineering, Kevin Mitnick in the 90s was #1 on the FBI's most wanted list for hacking. He ended up going to jail. And then he came out of jail and he became a founder of a company that Cumberland uses for security. Let's see if this is going to play.
So I have to tell you the story where I was hired to break into a major bank using social engineering techniques and defeating their physical security to get into their data center. So what I did is when I first went into the lobby of the skyscraper, it was over 50 stories, they had armed security, guys with guns. You'd have to sign in a log after showing your driver's license, and then you could use your access card to get to the elevator to go up to your floor. So I had to figure a way to defeat this. So what I did is I found the number to the leasing office of the building. I called it, and then I used a little bit of phone pretexting. I said I was Jim Smith, that we just had a fire in the building, and I wanted to take a look at what office space they had available immediately. So the very next day, I'm now walking around with the leasing agent. She's showing me the different offices. I'm negotiating price. And then I wanted to ask her the key question. I go, how many keys do we get to the offices? She goes, oh no, sir, we don't give you keys. We give you access cards. So what I noticed is that she actually had an access card dangling from her belt with her picture on it. So I asked her, I go, can I take a look at that? So she takes it off her belt, she hands it to me, and then with my daily planner, I put it over it. I look at her picture, I hand it back, and what she didn't realize is my daily planner that I was carrying was a special daily planner with a little bit of technology inside that was used to steal the card ID and the site ID so I could clone her card. So with this device, what I could do is take pretty much an empty card. We'll put it in front of the reader so you can see what that looks like. 0001, 0001. So with this device, basically put this down, I hit one button, that's all it takes. So now I've essentially cloned the card. So if you take the leasing agent's card, you put it in front of the reader, it's 113-64038. And if we take the card that I just made, it's the same, 113-64038. Essentially, these two cards are the same. So what I was able to do with the leasing manager's card is I didn't have to go in front of those security officers and sign in to get into the elevator. I went into the parking lot and it worked with the freight elevator. So I was able to ride the elevator up to the floor where the bank was and then use the same tradecraft to break into the bank. So not only do you have to be concerned about malicious emails, malicious phone calls, you have to be concerned when you're put into any situation where anyone asks to look at your card. Don't do it. You have to stop, look, and think before you hand out your access card to anyone.
Now, you saw several things in there. Number one, he went to see, to the bank, to the building, to see how the security system worked. Then he calls the leasing agent with a sense of urgency. We've had a fire. We need space immediately. Our business is going to die if you don't help me out today. That's a clue. Anytime somebody needs something just absolutely right now or yesterday, it's probably suspicious. And then the leasing agent should have been taught never hand that card to anybody. But the thing about it is, and he, like I say, he started hacking in the 90s, I think. People wouldn't think about the fact you could have just a little portfolio that would read that card. Now, that little portfolio in 2005 might have cost $50,000. But if you can get more than $50,000 worth of whatever, maybe it's worth it, you know.
Seth?
Social engineering. It's hard to deflect and hard to track and hard to catch because it targets people. And you have to educate people, and sometimes you have to be mean to people to get them not to fall for this. It's manipulation. You've got to do this. A nice person would do this for me. I've known you for 10 years. Don't you trust me? I mean, I'm not sure getting to know somebody and spending 10 years with them would be worth $50, but 50 million? I mean, we're talking long con, but, you know, threats, greed, offering to share part of it. And then again, back to what we started, research, figure out what's going on, design, develop, find tools, and then finally execute them. I'm working on a list of podcasts that I'll post or tell you about or something, because there's one guy that does Darknet Diaries. His older ones are better than his new ones, but his old ones, he actively goes out and seeks people, and some of them to the point that he has to disguise their voice, because they would still go to jail if people knew what they had done, or that they were the ones that done it. Some of them know, some of them will say, some of the stories you'll know, well, I remember when that happened, and he'll interview the guy that did it or masterminded it. And again, just a picture. We've got to do research. We've got to figure out who to target. And again, short-term, long-term relationships. And then we've got to figure out how can we get them to exploit what we want done. Just give us a username and password. Social proof is like a validation of, hey, this person's good. get them to open some kind of attachment. I'm sure you've gotten the emails, that I know what you did Saturday night. Here's the video to prove it. Send me $200 in Bitcoin or I'm sending it to all your friends. Now, if you know you were sitting at home playing with your cat and dog on Saturday night, it's not a big deal. But if maybe you were doing something you shouldn't have been doing on Saturday night, then you have to wonder. But let's think about it. Let's send that message to 1,000 people or 10,000 people. There's probably one or two of them that was doing something on Saturday night they shouldn't have been. It might be serious or it might not be serious. They might fall for it. I left, even though we already talked about phishing a little bit. Oh, I guess this is a slide. Oh, it says on my notes here. I get random text on my phone. See if I've got any that I've not deleted. Usually I block them. And of course, now that I want one, I don't have any. But it'll say something like, let's see, maybe this, nope. Maybe it'll say something like, oh, okay, here's one. I found this number while cleaning my contacts. Who is this? From a 628 area code. Maybe I'll write back and say who it is. Maybe I say, I don't recognize the number. Who are you? And it's always the same, because I have written back sometimes, and it's always the same. It's, oh, I'm looking for my friend Mary or my friend Joe, and I thought this was his or her number, and then, well, sorry, wrong number. You shouldn't really reply to these things, but sometimes it's just too tempting not to. And then it always changes. Well, you seem like a nice guy. And you can see they're just, Thought about having AI generate me a picture of myself with like a horn out the side of my face and big, just like I look like came through a meat grinder. And so, well, this is me. What do you think now? Anyway, all sorts of things. Malware. Bad, where? Programs. You've probably seen something pop up. Had this happen in class this morning, in my other class. Downloaded something to install in the Microsoft Windows Defender through Internet Explorer, Microsoft Edge. I'm old, I say Internet Explorer. Popped up and said, this file's an executable. Do you really want to download it? It tried. I knew what I was downloading though. So we have software that can look at this stuff, but still a user, like in the case this morning, all I had to do was say, yes, it's safe, and it went ahead and did it. And there are users out there, they would do that. The first computer virus that was actually got out on the network was a worm that some guy, he just thought it would be neat to see if he could write something that would find out what other computers that their computer was connected to. So you got a computer here and it's connected to 5 others. He wanted to figure out what computers it was connected to, and then to see what computers they were connected to. And then it was just supposed to get to the end and die. But it was buggy. And what it did was it just kept infecting the same computer over and over again. So it'd go from computer A to computer B to computer C, back to computer B, and eventually the computer just choked up. But the idea of a worm is it just spreads by itself. Adware, spyware, there's a fine line there. Spyware typically is stealing information. Adware, you probably said, yes, let me have this, when you installed something. We talked a little bit about botnets the other day. Again, these are just terms that are going to show up in this section. Again, you don't need to memorize them. We've all heard of ransomware. Some what I would consider not so brilliant people that I know have called me and said, hey Ken, there's a red screen on my computer that says if I don't pay $1,000, all my data's gone. I've got a hard drive on a shelf that is in a Ziploc bag with packing tape around it that is loaded with ransomware that from someone I would have never thought that would have fallen for it. Logic bomb is interesting. Let's say that you're a programmer for Acme Corp, and you don't like your job, but you like the paycheck. But your boss knows you don't like the job, but you're a good programmer. And you're always worried someday they're going to find a better programmer or somebody who actually wants to work here. So you go in the payroll system. The payroll system generates pay every week. And you go in the payroll system and you put a little piece of code in there that says, if my name doesn't get a check, wipe everything out. Or if my name doesn't get a check, add an extra zero to everybody's paycheck. Or anything like that. And often it's stuff like that just to wreak havoc. But it could be, if my name doesn't show up in payroll, give me all access on my card, my security card, and then hope they don't take it. That's hard to fight against. Talked about worms a little bit. Trojan horses, the idea is you download a piece of software or someone sends you a piece of software and they say, hey, this will make your computer 5 times faster. And it really doesn't do that, but it has something in that lets them in. That's the RAT, remote access. I can't think of what the T stands for. Might be remote access Trojan. But then they can sit down and log into your computer. Remote access is down there as well. May disable your firewall. Again, maybe just causing havoc, but maybe giving them access to something. Rootkits are a different level. A rootkit gets installed at such a low level on your computer that often just wiping the drive, reformatting the drive, doesn't get rid of it, that it survives a drive wipe. This is why, Windows 11 now doesn't run on older computers, because it's supposedly verifies that that boot up process hasn't been tampered with. Again, this isn't something you're going to do to get access to someone's Steam game collection, but if we're talking a few dollars or a few $1 million, you might. Spyware collects information, may take over the computer, it may install software, it may install like some kind of Bitcoin miner on your computer. It may redirect the browser so that when you go to acme.com, it sends you to another site. Or it may just insert ads everywhere. We've already talked about ransomware. We've already talked a little bit about crypto malware. The idea is this is going to do crypto mining on your system, or it may just see if you have any crypto wallets and steal your Bitcoin or whatever the coin of the week is. There is a virus that just lives in memory, and virus scanners sometimes don't scan. They rely on it scanning on the disk. Now, obviously, you shut the computer off and start it back up, and it's going to be there. But if you can get somebody, you're on the phone with somebody, and you can convince them to download this thing, and they don't have good software to prevent that download, then maybe it gets on. We said what security was, true security, the other day. Concrete, bottom of the ocean, that's secure. But what can we do? Everybody loves to update. I have a tool that I run on a computer that always keeps my browser open. And I think I irritate, it's running under Google Chrome. I think I irritate it because I'll get these little update messages up there in the corner. And if you update it, you have to restart the thing. Some kind of antivirus. The school provides antivirus services for my machine, for my school-owned machine. I just use what comes with Windows. Better yet, my wife just uses what comes with Windows, and it seems to work pretty good. Spyware and rootkit's kind of built into that. A good firewall, pop-up blocker, ad blockers. You know, you gotta debate. There are websites out there that they depend on ads, and blocking those ads deprives them of money. So that becomes kind of a little moral question. And then what are you going to do with it? Are you going to quarantine it so you can go back and look at it later, like I did that hard drive that's sealed up in a bag? Or are you just going to delete it and try to get on with life? I don't think I'm going to take 15 minutes and talk about Chapter 3. So we'll plan on talking about Chapter 3 on Tuesday. And then I think the only chapter next week is 4. So that'll give us time to cover it. Let me just take a minute. CVE is publicly disclosed vulnerabilities. And so let's go up here and let's type Aruba and see if we find anything. And it looks like maybe HP owns Aruba. But notice now, it gives you the year, and then this is just a sequential number. So that's the 63,456th one that's been found in 2026. There's nothing magic about the number. Let's go back and let's search Apache web server. And so let's click one of these. And you can see it tells you that this was a problem from version 3 up to but not including 3.18. Well, now we can take this, and I've just picked one at random. I didn't pick one that we might actually find anything for. And we go find exploit. And we see lots of things. You might have to jump into the dark web or something to find exploits. We could probably, I'll try to find some that are older that have been solved, and then that would be a way to do it. But anything you have, you know, so here, yeah, I know it, just do it. Well, see, it's a 3.6 or 3.9, so it's not very severe. They're 0 to 10 or 1 to 10 or something. But all of this stuff is out there, and it ought to be out there because this is how security professionals can find, hey, the Aruba things have a problem. But so can anyone else. So you don't necessarily, that's why somebody finds one, the white hats will often contact the company and give them 60 or 90 days or something. And then if they don't respond, then they may release it out into the public. I'll try to find some old examples and see if, because then you can go, I know one a few years back that I saw, you found the vulnerability and it was an old web server application. Then you go to YouTube and there was a walkthrough with a script that you could download files off that server. Now, the thing was probably 3 or 4 years old and hadn't been, would have to be 3 or 4 years old, maybe 5, 10 years old now, and not be patched. But those exist. Anyway, y'all have a good rest of